This conference will now be recorded.
So we will start the meeting at 6:04. And first order is to approve the minutes from the previous meeting, which was August 17th. I emailed everybody. Any questions or changes?
So if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
So we're recording it because our new recorder who's doing the minutes for us will be doing it remotely. So I think it's important that whenever we speak up, say who you are so that she knows how to do the minutes. So, you know, as we move forward.
Yeah.
And if we could start by just saying who's here, Dan.
Okay.
So
Yeah, absolutely.
recorded.
I mean, I don't see that she's even logged in yet.
Okay, but it's recorded. So
Right.
She'll pull the recording and then take the minutes.
Okay. So at attendance, we've got myself, Daniel Hall, Roger Peterson, John Anon, Bill Meeser's not here, Heinz Proft, Daniel Casey, James Walpole. Okay. No James Walpole, Joe Johnson, Kent is here, Larry is here, and Rich Chevry as an alternate is here. Kent has just approved the minutes of August. We need someone to second them.
Second.
Dan.
Roger.
Yeah, Dan was behind it. So we need a vote. All in favor for the minutes?
Aye.
All in favor, aye. So it's approved. So we move on to consent agenda, which we don't have anything.
And if I could just add one more in attendance, it's Mark Burgess.
Oh, yes,
but he's going to
sorry.
be presenting 2 projects.
You're right.
Okay.
Open forum. Do we have anything for the open forum? It's a negative, all right. So move on to the financial report.
Okay, anybody need copies of the financial report?
Okay.
I have a couple copies
Yeah,
here.
I got a copy too.
All that. Anybody else? You good? Okay, just kind of briefly going through it. You see, again, I think we had a pretty good month of September. You know, what highlights to me is the visitor dockage. You know, I thought last year was real good at 44,000. We had 53,000 worth of visitor dockage just in the month of September. So we were full this summer, as many of you in this room know. You know, just it continues to do very well from a visitor standpoint. There's a couple numbers we didn't have that will be accounted once we get the revenues, artisan shacks, parking violations, and our excise tax, boat excise tax that we yes, thank you, that we put into our mooring account. So those 3 figures that we don't have. But if you compare the monthly totals, you see we're up by a little over 6,000 from what we did last year. And if you look at the year-to-date, again, as I've said in previous months, it appears that we're well below last year, but again, that accounts for the dredge sand that we sold last fiscal year when we dredged Saquatucket. You know, we bid it out to you know, private homeowners that wanted sand, and that was somewhere in the range of $120,000 that we generated from selling sand. So that's not an every year thing. That's just as we can when we have excess. So if you pull that out, we're doing well. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer.
People didn't like the park where they should have parked, huh? Or is that was from last year?
What's that?
The 2020, the parking violations, 1,400.
Oh, yeah, well, once we get our numbers, they're probably gonna be significant too. It's just, in that goes with managing the trailer lot. People aren't parked properly and they're taking up 2 or 3 spaces. You're gonna see significant increase because of Round Cove. We instituted our new regulations over at Round Cove where you have to be a Harwich resident and there's a separate sticker that you have to have. So unfortunately, it's a busy part of our work is managing our lots.
Is this the first time we had a really dedicated landing person, or did we also have that?
Yeah, no, this was the first year. Yeah.
That's right.
So we were able to get an extra, the Board of Selectmen approved us to get another seasonal employee. So we had in our schedule a defined landings officer, person who was out of the office. All he did was go to all of our landings throughout the day. And sometimes getting underway over at Long Pond, getting underway around Cove Pleasant Bay, but also checking all our landings, checking all the lots, checking all the ramps, and doing enforcement. So that was a good thing. Yeah.
The fines paid for?
Huh?
The fines covered in?
Well, I don't know if they'll cover it, but it's gonna come close.
Once again, I think we touched on it when we had that Round Cove discussion. Is that something to look into working with Eric at Rec? If the selectmen are gonna give, money or position to us or you to do that, just to kind of divide and conquer so he's not going north side, south side, like all over the world. If it's double duty, if Rec is doing enforcement as well, kind of the team up and divide and conquer.
Yeah, the only real overlap, Larry, is Long Pond.
Well,
So-
I'm just more just thinking even just geographically. If we took it, or if that parking enforcement, kind of did both, and it was broken up to
You
get
mean
kind of,
if the
if it was kind of removed
like-
from both departments and it was just parking enforcement.
Yeah. My landing officer is more than a parking enforcement person,
Okay.
right? I mean, that's just
A
when he
portion of
goes
it.
to Round Cove and when he goes to get underway and check the mooring field and out in Pleasant Bay and check the ramp.
So it's more than just
He
checking
he
stickers.
will also check the lot, but it's not a parking person.
I got you.
Whereas I think, I don't know how Rec, I don't want to, I know they do a lot of parking enforcement too, and I don't know if it's
I think it's
specific.
purely parking.
It could be,
Yeah.
it could be, but, yeah,
I didn't realize
I
they
don't
were
see
doing
that.
more than just.
yeah,
How did Round Cove work out?
yeah, I think it worked out well. I think if you talk to a Harwich resident, they were happy,
Good.
right? I mean, they were.
They got their money.
People who use that landing a lot in the summer, I think appreciated the new regulation and appreciated us being there more often to enforce it. I think if you talk to the people who got a ticket or the people who we said, listen, you gotta have a sticker or you can't because you're not a Harwich resident, we obviously got some negative feedback in that regard. But those people who didn't like what we did, the feedback I got was, oh, you're just another fee and you're trying to create revenue. And really, that's not it. We were just trying to make sure that that landing, was available to Harwich residents.
Pretty limited.
It's a limited area and it's heavily used. So, I don't know, how did you,
So the only comment, and also some of the restrictions to one per household.
yeah, that's right. So somebody who typically uses the ramp and likes to go out on their boat and, one person goes out and gets the boat and the family meets them once everything's done and they are used to taking 2 cars. They can't do that. It's only 1 sticker per household on 1 vehicle. So they've had to make some adjustments. But that's the way it is.
Any other questions?
Just a question for me, but is it the same sticker for round code that you would use for like Long Pond? Or is it
No.
a totally separate sticker just for round code?
Just not,
It's such a small area.
Yeah.
Really.
gotta do it. I mean, we just had people coming from, Chatham and Orleans and Brewster and out of state, when the fishing was good. I mean, it was just getting overwhelmed. So
Yeah, that ice machine's amazing, John.
it is amazing, right?
Did you guys buy that or?
No, I mean, they provide it free and then, they charge what they charge for a bag and we get like $1 a bag or $1.50. And so the only thing we pay for is electricity.
Yep.
So, but it's so much better. You should see how much more ice we sold because of that machine.
At Round Coast?
No,
No.
that's what I was gonna say.
It's so easy.
I didn't even know it was there though.
I mean, because we come in and we open up at what, 7? I bet there's 100 bags sold, or maybe not that, but there's a whole lot at 4 or 5 in the morning when everybody's showing up,
It's a good bag too.
Yeah.
Good size.
I got a lot of good feedback from that.
Other thing that's really cool about that ice machine is the old one, when it would get low and the boat would say, hey, you're getting low. Then we make a call, then we're on the list, then we get a delivery a couple days later. All that's been removed. That weight gets transferred electronically to the, we
Lukes,
just look out the
right?
window, the
Lukes,
truck
huh?
pulls up. And
That's
they
great.
fill it
Yeah,
with leaves.
it's all done by weight and they monitor the weight. Yeah, it's pretty cool. Yeah. Technology, man.
Yeah. Anything else? All right. We'll move on to next agenda would be the approval for the forest dock.
Okay, so let's see,
And-
Forest is,
It's not you?
Panorama point.
Oh, Foster.
Foster, sorry. Jeez. Long day.
I have a couple of
Foster.
hard copies if
Sorry.
anybody wants to look at them.
Got it?
I'm good, I got it.
You got it? Okay. Anybody else, Roger?
I've got it.
You got it? Okay.
Take it away.
Okay, there's another hard copy here that I can give anybody if they want to.
I've been there.
Oh, okay, I was gonna ask you, how many people managed to make it out there and take out the pack?
Me and Heinz, and it was a struggle.
It's interesting, yeah.
Oh my
One of
God.
the things to find it.
Yep.
So for your record, my name is Mark Burgess of Sheffield Consulting. We represent Foster and Van Dyke at 5 Panorama Point. We've got a little, like a pork chop lot of property. It narrows down to about 50 or 60 feet wide. And then goes down an inland bank. There's nothing on the bank that belongs to them. Next to them is an easement and a set of rickety steps, like pavers in the ground or something. So his goal is to have a set of access stairs over the bank and then a seasonal dock. It's a pretty simple. We go out.
Can I interrupt?
3, 4, 5,
Yeah,
6, 7.
yeah. Hold
Mark,
on,
can I-
Mark.
Can you say that again? Did I hear you wrong? They don't own this?
No, they do own. Where the stairs are, there's a set of stairs down the bank over here.
Okay,
And that's on, you see that, well, there's a red line, but that's on like an easement or an access for the neighbors behind them.
okay.
So yes, they
But what
own,
we're talking about, what they're proposing, that's their land.
that's their land.
Okay, got it. Sorry.
Yes, so stairs over an inland bank to a seasonal dock. The dock has 5 sections, 6 sections to get out, so 60 feet out, and then just another section at the end to hang out on. When we did the survey, that's how far out we had to go to get 3 feet of water at the end of the dock. And I gotta tell you, when I went to stake it out, the water was up to here for my waders. I almost had to like go back and get my kayak. And that was right after we had all that rain, so it was back up again.
Yeah.
But we know the elevation of that pond because it's controlled by a weir or something over, not a weir, it's dam controlled.
Yeah.
Sluiceway, okay. Anyway, the elevation is known, so it was just higher than normal when I got there, but we have to go by what the ordinary high water level is, which is controlled. So that's really it. It's your standard aluminum docks. There's 7 sections total. We have the public access steps on the side, right by the shoreline. Nobody will use them, but we have to put them in there. And that's about it. Really, it comes out every year. I would expect that these guys would have a rack or something at the top of the hill, but that's not your concern. I hate to have to haul them all the way back to the house.
All right.
So,
We'll hear from,
So, that was one of my questions.
where would they put it?
Where are they putting all of those 7 sections of floats? I just don't see them getting it up that hill easily.
Yeah, they weigh like 150 pounds apiece, and if they get them down, they'll be able to carry them up the stairs in theory. But it's a 2-person job for sure. But the commission's not going to let them store them down at the bank. They're not going to let them store them on the bank. They're going to have to be stored in the buffer zone behind the slope of the bank, whether they put a rack there or whether you just stack them because it's just woods. They'll have a special condition to cover that, but it has to come out.
Yeah,
But I
but
tell people, if you don't, nature will. So, or they'll find it in the middle of the lake when the ice moves and then thaws and drops your dock into the bottom of the pond. So, not good either way. They have to take it out.
And it's 60 feet in total, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, so Heinz and I'll let Heinz speak next. We went out there, from a navigation standpoint, and I mean, there's nothing around. So I don't have any concern, that the dock is going to provide any kind of issue with navigating around the area. It's just it's a tough site, I would say. And, there has to be a plan on where they're going to put them because they can't stay in the water and otherwise they'll get trashed. And I don't know how they're going to get them up the slope. But that's not my business. Heinz?
Heinz Propp, Natural Resources Director. Usually when it comes to ponds, I'll make reference to possible migration of either herring or eels. There's no concern here. Eelgrass or seagrass, and shellfish is not existent in a freshwater pond. But not to underemphasize, this is really steep. And it's not just a short distance of steep, it's a long distance of steep. And again, this is beyond the purview of Natural Resources or Robert worrying about how they're going to get that up and down, but it is a chore. And then again, nothing that would fall under Natural Resources, or I wouldn't really think Harbor. It's not the pond, it's what's going to need to be removed, cut, cleared, parentheses, to make room for that. It's more than just a few shrubs. There's some hardwood trees that got serious base to them. I don't know exactly where it's going in, but that becomes, conversation for the Conservation Commission, how much they're going to allow to open that up, because it is kind of overgrown, I thought, from where we were standing.
Yeah, and if your stakes were, the line that you were going down,
In between those 2 trees.
I mean, there's 2 big trees there. So
I'm
I'm sure you guys figured it out, but
I'm aiming for the middle of those. We'll see what happens. But we want to keep it in the middle of the lot because now for freshwater, you only have to be 15 feet from the property line for Chapter 91, not 25 like you would in saltwater. So we have some wiggle room. I think there's another person that's pretty close by 65 feet or so that might want something. So we could move it a little bit if we had to, and we'll bring that up at the hearing, but that's what I'm shooting for. If we can make it between those 2 trees, I'm hoping by the time it's off the ground that the D is wide enough that we can just go right through it.
yeah, it is a narrow lot.
Yeah.
I don't have anything else.
any other kind of questions? Anyone have any concerns or questions or? Nothing? Then ask anyone to make a motion to either accept or deny.
Joe Johnson, move to accept.
Anyone accept, or any second, so Dan? And to vote, take that to a vote, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, yeah, we need to sign 2 copies.
And if you
And
want,
date 'em.
if you want to make a recommendation, you have a written recommendation at some point. If you want to make any written recommendation, then it has to come out. I know it's a requirement anyway. I mean, for you, you know it has.
I mean,
It's up to you.
I don't think we need to, if that's a requirement.
You wanna, Joe, you wanna start the signing?
Yeah.
There's 2 copies. These are 19.
19th.
Mhm.
No. We need 2 of them signed and dated, please.
I've got at least one extra here.
Yeah, we got them. Thank you.
Mhm.
I think just to. I'll collect those.
Yeah, I want to go to him and you keep one, right? Everyone sign it? Next on the agenda is the proposed changes of float for Howard, and yet again being presented by Mark Burgess.
I've got at least 2 extra copies here that are more desk, well, that are, these plans are desk friendly. Okay. All right, so this one is pretty straightforward. It is an existing fully permitted and licensed dock, and the current configuration complies with that license and permits exactly. I haven't enlarged the float or done anything to it. It's exactly the way it's supposed to be. The problem that the owner has is that it's a 12 by 12 float, and he has a real problem trying to haul it every year because not everybody can do it. You need a special permit because it's 12 feet wide. So 10-foot wide float is okay, that fits on a flatbed, but 12-foot needs a special permit. They have been floating it down to Allen Harbor and storing it in the boatyard, I guess. But he doesn't want to do that anymore, and he doesn't need that size of a float. So what we talked about was changing it from a 12 by 12 to a 10 by 16, which is still within the 200 square foot limit. It's only 160 square feet, of course. We cannot expand, well, we cannot move the edge of the float to the north because it is currently 65 feet from the pier that's to the north. So our only way to move is to the south. If we extend it to the south, we come over an extension of the property line. Now, nobody really actually has rights, but if you were to extend the southern property line out, we will pass over it. Again, chapter 91 doesn't care because if they measure their 25 feet at mean high water. So you can have a dock in the right spot and then float can go wherever you want. And that's not, they don't worry about that. In this case, we did, I don't have it with me, I'm sorry, but I do have it in an email. If you need me to provide it for your records, I will. But we have a letter from the homeowner next door that says that they're okay with us extending the float up to 4 feet over their property. We're only going 2. Now, the other advantage is the landward side of the float moves out 2 feet. Nothing's there, but you have more depth on the float. There's a ramp there now. Pictures of it. So the ramp that's there now, it's a long ramp. It's like 24 feet, I believe. Yeah, it's a 3 by 24 ramp. They don't need to change the ramp, even though we're moving, because there's a fair amount of overlap, and that long ramp, even on your swing of high and low tide, doesn't move in and out very far when it's that long. The short ramps, of course, move quite a bit. So there's plenty of room. They can use the same ramp and just move and just chop 2 feet off the float, and everything will be in the same spot. In conversation with John, what he would like to see is have us move the whole float like 1 foot in as a compromise and get the float 1 foot out of the 1 foot away from the channel. I think we can do that. They normally will set a float with a 2.5 foot overlap. I mean, they'll set a ramp with a 2.5 foot overlap to the back edge of the float. Now, this also is supported by pipe piles, which has been problematic in the past. They were 4-inch pipe piles, and I don't know if it's because they were so thick or because the brackets were long, but it would get twisted up and the float would hang, which of course was dangerous. And then the company that was trying to install and remove these 4-inch piles, he watched them one day and he said somebody just about got killed because they're long, heavy piles and they didn't really have the right equipment. So this is a way to improve it, increase some safety for the people that have to move the float every year. So it is proposed to have 2 permanent piles instead of the pipes, and that way we don't have to worry about that anymore. Nothing out of the ordinary, really. Just trying to make a situation that's okay, but make it much better for everybody. I think that would be it.
Would the permanent piles be on the outside of the float or the inside?
The center, top and bottom. Let's see if you can look at the elevation view, but they're in the middle. The float that's here will be in the middle of the float, top and bottom.
Oh.
We could put them behind, on the landward side, and that way when it comes out, the piles aren't sticking out as much. Does that?
Yeah, I was just asking.
No, if you care, if you care, I think I'm happy to do that. So we just have one boat, so the piles can be centered or on the ends. I didn't show it in my plan view. In the elevation, the pile shown in the middle, but I can move it to the back side. Yeah, I can do that if you want.
Hear from John.
Okay, am I up?
You are up.
Okay. John Rodon, Harbor Master. So, yeah, I think it's important we have this letter from the neighbor that says you can go over the property. I wasn't aware of that.
Yeah.
So from the end of the south end of the float, south side of the float, you're how close to the property?
The proposed is to have it extend 2 feet.
So what is that, just 23 feet?
No, it's a 16 foot. It's going to a 16-foot float. It will overlap the property line by 2 feet.
Okay. So it's got to be 25 feet off the property.
No, the dock would need to be, but it's already licensed in this location. We're not moving that. So the float, because it's out in the water, that's Commonwealth tideline, so they don't care about that. That 25 foot doesn't necessarily apply out in the water. That 25 feet is measured at mean high water. So whether this complies with that or not, we're not moving it, and it's already licensed. The pier is licensed in that location, so there's no concern there.
So you're not changing anything with regard to the fixed structure?
Nope, nothing. Only thing we're changing is the float and swapping out 4 pipe piles for 2 permanent ones.
Okay, so if it doesn't matter about the float having a distance to the property line, why do you need to get the permission of the abutter?
It shows that we're cooperating with his neighbor, and that rather than having them complain after they're notified and go to the conservation hearing and say, look, we already, if the commission or anybody has a concern, they've already done their due diligence with their neighbor and the neighbor's fine.
Okay, so no variance is required or no, this is a, I know it's previously permitted, but there is no effect to that by doing this.
No, it's under the 200 square foot requirement and there's no dock going out. So it's not, there's nothing there for the 65 foot setback.
Two adjacent dock, a pier or dock, correct?
Right, there's
65.
an adjacent dock to the north and the float is sited on the plan 65 feet from that. And it has a certificate of compliance, so I have to assume it's in the right spot.
Okay, so I guess my 2 requests are, 1, yes, definitely put the piles on the inside of the float and bring the float in a foot. And I think that would be good. That's a tight area. Everybody knows, I'm sure everybody knows. Allen Harbor coming in the channel already, it's pretty tight. You get 2 boats passing in that channel. You know, so any room we can save is beneficial.
Yeah, if you're gonna do 2 permanent piles, I think it would be best to be on the inside.
That's fine. Once we set it, it'll never have to move. I mean, the pipe piles, you figure every time they take it out and put
Yeah.
it back in, the flow could be in a slightly different place, but yeah, we do permanent and it stays right where it's at. And we just have to make sure that, well, I'll show on the plan where to do it. I haven't filed this with conservation yet, so you're more than welcome to hold your letter of recommendation ransom until I give you a revised plan and a letter from the neighbor. I'm happy to do that. I've got too much to do to do another plan. Harwich at the moment, so I'm more than happy to do that. If you want to select John as your the person to review and approve it before we issue the letter, I'm fine with that. It doesn't make anybody different. I'm
Well,
fine with that procedure.
Wouldn't we see the plans again?
I think you would.
I mean, what's your,
Yeah. What's your time frame?
This is an hour's worth of work.
No, to get this.
I think the chairman,
Yeah, that's the thing. I mean, I know we've done this a couple times before, and that's something we don't want to start getting into is, we kind of vote for it, and for then other paperwork on the backside, and then, that's in John's lap opposed to, you know what I'm saying? I mean, I know we did it a couple times before just because, we were trying to get things in and everyone's rushing for
I'm
that.
saying, can I wait a month?
Yeah, that's
For you.
essentially.
Honestly, I don't know if I can file it a month from now, just based on everything else I've got going.
Well, if we,
If you're writing a recommendation, the recommendation tonight is to do those things.
right,
That's your recommendation. In essence, I could say, I don't want to do that and bring these plans to conservation, but we know that's not going to go well.
right.
So no matter what, you're providing a recommendation, and I'll back it up with.
Yeah, I'm trying to avoid to have it, then it gets put in John's lap to kind of follow up with it where it should, I would think it should end here.
Now, I would have to file this in 2 weeks with conservation in order to be in front of them for the next,
Right.
the next meeting. That is not going to
Okay,
happen. So if you want to bump it,
so then if we could, I mean,
Yeah, so then bump it to the next meeting, just
Yeah.
bring us a revised plan and the letter. from
well,
the
we're
neighbor.
gonna get a vote on to, deny the, I don't want to make the motion, you guys.
Or you may just put it-
Just continue.
when I was at
Yeah.
the
That's terrible word, tough word.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
Chairman? Why can't you just cut the existing float in half and hinge it instead of going through all this trouble?
you can't really do that to a float because of the way it's framed. Because the stringers are all a certain length, and it's actually more work than you just.
We'd have two separate floats joined together.
Yeah, you could cut 2 feet off of one, and then you'd have a 10 by 12, and then you'd have a 4-foot section.
So you could go right down the middle, right? Well,
Then you just cut it up anyway. So,
that one went through all this trouble.
you know, by the time you do that, you've got to unbolt all the cleats and all the ankle braces, chunk the wood, refasten it. It's better just to get. And I'm not sure how old this wood is, but. So generally what I've been told is when you butcher them up like that, that it's not, you know, the better way is just have something from scratch. Maybe they could shorten it to a 10 by 12 and sell that to somebody. I don't know. You know, but I wouldn't try to make it anything more than that. To put a 4-foot on the end and try to reframe that, then you're sistering up joists and everything. It's just going to be flimsy, I think. More trouble than it takes.
Anything else?
Natural resources again, Heinz Croft, no eelgrass, no migration of eels or herring, but out in Harbor, this is an area that can be shellfish. It's a seasonal float, so that's good because when it possibly would be open, this would be removed. Keeping shellfish up and down the channel. It's rare, but it does happen. I don't see anything there. But I was thinking, you know, John made the comment about it's tight, and I can't think of a single waterway or harbor or mooring field that isn't congested in Harwich. I mean, I couldn't ever select one that's, so it's just, you know, they're all congested. Is there anything that possibly is less congested than the others? Can't think of that either. So every foot counts. And so I think that's a good suggestion.
And do you see any issues with permanent piles being driven?
I don't. No, I don't see that as conservation in the past. May look at that, oh, that's a significant loss of habitat. I would disagree. Because how many square feet is Allen Harbor and how many 2 square foot? Now they're going to say it's cumulative. Well, some is already there, and yeah, I would never.
Would you think it helps? Because then you're not disturbing as much by
Well,
removing.
in and out would be
Yeah.
disturbing a bottom, but they're looking at it's a permanent loss. You put in a permanent
No.
piling, and technically, you'd have to say yeah, but you'd also have to agree with me if I pour a cup of water now in Harbor. Technically, I've raised the water level from the harbor. Could not disagree with you there. So significant comes into play, and I don't think that's a significant loss of shellfish habitat.
I would argue, I mean, they jet these things in to get them in, so I would argue that the disturbance, to seasonally install and remove them is more disturbance to the habitat and the bottom than just doing it once and walking away.
I would agree.
All right, so entertain a motion.
I move that we continue until he can bring back a plan with the changes proposed by the harbor master.
When is your next meeting?
The
Third Wednesday.
third Wednesday, November.
16?
Yeah, 16th.
You know, the phone is smarter than me when it comes to scheduling. Wow. Empty. All right, 11/16?
Yes.
No problem.
So the change would be to move it back a foot, 2 permanent piles on the inside in the neighbor's letter.
Correct. Yeah, move it a foot, move the pile location supplied way.
Mhm. All right, so Roger motion, do we have a second? Larry? Yes. Vote, take a vote, all in favor,
Aye.
opposed? Thank you very much.
I can put these back if you want me to recycle them. Because the plans will be different, the pictures will be the same. Anybody else?
Yeah. Thanks, Mark.
You're welcome.
Yeah,
Thank you,
thank
guys.
you.
Congratulations, you're earning the taxes.
Yeah. Trying. So, no old business? Monthly reports, which included an email.
Yeah, if there's any questions, I
Yeah,
provided it to you. We had a busy September. As you can
thank
see,
you, Mark.
from, operations.
Anyone have any, you guys, I'll get them report and or look them over, or any questions?
Natural Resources doesn't write monthly reports, but I do the end of the town, year end, and you'll get that probably in January. But a couple comments. One, there's a wooden sluiceway that connects from Long Pond to Black Pond. So it's right near the Brewster Harwich border, but it is in Harwich. And the last time that the record of it being built was 1992. So now we're 2022. And with funds from Natural Resources under my line item for repairing maintenance, I spent some money prior to July 1st and then purchased some additional pressure treated wood, Green Fisheries, and some help from them. They rebuilt like 40 feet of this trough section, removed rocks that were stopping sand from getting in there, and now it looks great. We just don't have water level to connect those two, but it allows herring to go and spawn, water flow to go back and forth, water quality, Black Pond improves. And the homeowners were very patient because they came about a year and a half ago kept asking. They'd go in front of the Conservation Commission, they had to get the town boundaries, but it's a project that didn't take a lot of time once it was given the green light, but to get to that point took some time. We stored some materials with the help of the harbor master, and it looks great. Very few people will see it because it's on this little, private road, but it connects two bodies of water, and that was completely done. And the herring fry that are still in Seymour Pond are trying to get out. Gotten some rain, but not enough yet to connect them to create a strong enough flow. Sometimes other people would call and say, well, I'll shovel out some, and I ask them not to, because if you allow fish to get in halfway, they die in this dried up connector, and we've lost all of them. So if we get some more rain, then yeah, and ideally we want them to go to the ocean. Second best scenario is overwinter in a pond. Now there's enough food for them, there's predation by other fish, but you get some survival. You let them go, you have zero survival if they try up these connectors between Hinkley's and Seymour and Long Pond and Hinkley's. Even down Hinkley, someone was just talking about, yes, water level has gone up in Hinkley and it's starting to trickle out, but not the flow that we used to see, many years. But it's always a tricky situation. One final comment. We had a low number of herring this year. Low meaning 292,000. The year before that was 400, before that was 800. So the numbers have come down through the Atlantic Fisheries, Division of Marine Fisheries, Harwich Natural Resources. Board of Selectmen approved a plan that would allow them to, if it was a public meeting and public supported it, if possible, limited harvest of herring in spring 2023, if they wanted to do so. If not, it's a 5-year allowable window for them to do it. So it's kind of nice for them to have it in their pocket. My recommendation would be, if let's go back in front of them in December and January, would be that you would hold off in 2023 and see what those numbers of herring are like, because we had these decreasing numbers. What prompted that was a great 900,000, 1 million fish, and so then we started the ball rolling. It's one of those things, again, that took a lot of time to finally work with Division of Fisheries, edits, drafts, go back in front of the Board of Selectmen. They give the approval for that. Goes back to Atlantic Fisheries to give the final blessing. And then Harwich has that button to push if they want it. But I would still caution and just say, well, what's waiting one more year? It looks bad if you open it and then rush to close it a year later. That looks worse than, we waited an extra year. Numbers came back. And then if that does happen, the town has to really look at how that's managed. How are you keeping track of your 10% take? tines and wardens that are there during that time responsible for it? Do you have permits that are allowed for town residents and maybe a certain percentage for non-residents? And what's that limit? And it's more than just a headline that says, Harwich is gonna allow taking a hearing. It's way far away from that happening, but that's the headline that you'll see. And people come to me, I hear you open up the run to the taking hearing next spring. Not quite. You hear that. So thanks.
When was the last time it was closed?
2004, I approached the board of selectmen along with Tom Leak back then, and we asked them to close the run to the taking hearing in 2004. 2 years later, the state of Massachusetts closes the entire state to the taking of hearing, calls us and says, I just want to let you know that we're going. Like, that's great. We're already ahead of you. And then as the years have progressed in other towns, Pembroke is another town that has gotten the approval that we have now, but they have yet to throw that switch. So Division of Fisheries would like maybe 2 or 3 or 4 towns to open rather than one town where you get all that pressure. And then you have somebody from 60 miles away say, well, I got them from, now you can be in possession of herring if one of those towns opens, but, they may not all get them from an approved spot if you have one that's open. So we've had pressure in the past, and that's what kind of drove the, let's hold off and close it. And it's taken a while. It's more than one thing. It's not just overfishing, it's water quality, it's improvement of fish. If we get a good spawning year, like we have great spawning, how many of those fry really make it back out in the fall if we have low water? And so, how many of them survive out?
What do you think is, you haven't had much water? I think that was a
This
big,
year we haven't had much water to get them back out.
right.
Yeah. So then if they spawn, the adults go back, and now you got these fry, and I can see them in Seymour. I stand on the shoreline a long time. You'll see these fish just swimming along the shoreline, trying to sense an outflow, which we don't have right now.
I mean, because it damaged them if they get out later in the season?
They start to lose some body fat, and their health starts to deteriorate.
Will they last through the wintertime?
They will last, but not all of them.
Okay.
But they won't last if they dry up between the two. And what happens is they feed on zooplankton. Zooplankton, now they get less light, colder water temperature, that starts to drop, so what they're feeding on decreases, so their ability to deal with environmental factors like the winter or fight off bigger fish or something, it also decreases.
Will the fertilizer ban in Harwich affect that? On the change in,
No, I mean, fish will return back to where they spawn, so if the water quality has changed dramatically, maybe not. But I don't think, keeping water quality for not only herring, but for just all species of fish, and algae and dissolved oxygen and clarity, all that kind of chemicals there. I think the town's wastewater management plan over the years, each step will progressively make the waterways, including the harbors and the Herring River, a better ecological environment for shellfish, for herring and eels to migrate. I brought this up once before. We just talked about these structures in Herring River and how they possibly degrade the water quality there. I've heard someone in the Conservation Commission mention that, and it's so far from the real truth. But just water quality in the river is what drives shellfish or fish or stuff. It's not a piling or a dock that went in that is significantly impacting the water quality of the river. It's management plan, it's the septic systems, it's the runoffs, it's the impervious surfaces. That is a much bigger driver than this idea that
Putting a pile on
structure
it.
that may be approved with certain parameters is cumulatively affecting the ecological health of a river like that. The Herring River discharges over 1 million gallons of water every day. Every day, 1 million gallons of water goes out there. So there's plenty of water, movement. So, yeah. Thanks.
All right. So now, mooring relocation letters.
I'm just providing it as correspondence, just so you guys know that we've revoked moorings. We spend a lot of time checking our mooring fields and making sure people are using their moorings. So, this is a result of some of our efforts. can't determine whether somebody's, or we have determined, that people aren't using their moorings, then we'll revoke it. And so I think everybody knows we have kind of a one-time waiver system that we utilize within the department. Somebody who, for whatever reason, can't use their mooring for a year, they can request a waiver, and I'll grant a one-time waiver. And if somebody comes back with a second waiver, I typically deny unless it's something, very significant. And some of these we just reached out via email, via phone call, trying to determine what the status is, and we never gotten anything back. So
You ever heard back from any of these people?
we've heard, we send these letters via registered, so we know that they've received it. Yeah.
Time-consuming.
It's time consuming,
Yeah.
but it's time consuming for us to be out there in the summer checking all the moorings, and registrations and stickers and making sure people are using them, but that's part of what we do, and we think it's important. We have a limited number of moorings, and we think it's important that if people are gonna have them, they need to use them. If they're not, then they need to go to the wait list. So this is a result of that.
And the number of letters is less than 10.
Yeah, I don't know how.
Relative to the number of moorings, hundreds of moorings, the percentage of revocations are equally small.
Right, we don't do a ton of them, but I think it's important people understand that we do the enforcement piece of it, and it's important. So.
All right.
So it'll be 7, John, so they'll be coming in here probably.
Could be. You might see them. Yeah, if they come back to me, and then my direction will be, you can appeal it, although they have only 30 days from the date they receive it to appeal. So you may or may not see them coming back.
All right. If there's nothing else. Anything else? Make a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Joe
Joe Johnson.
November 16.
Second by.
Second.
All right, that's 56. Make a vote to adjourn.
Aye.
It's unanimous.
Next meeting, November 16th.
Yep, next meeting is the 16th of November.
With the summer.
It was a quick one.